very great feedback to make our project become perfect. So since most of us are physical fitness experts, that we know there's a strong relationship exists between fitness components and health, especially cardiorespiratory fitness and muscular fitness. Since the 1980s, studies have confirmed that the predictability of cardiorespiratory fitness in predicting future mortality among adults, while in the recent decades, the predictive validity of fitness in young people has been found to be tracked into their later life. More importantly, the level of fitness during young ages can predict people's current health standards and future health outcomes, including cardiovascular disease risk factors, cardiovascular disease morbidity, and mortality. Also, as a physical activity related measures, fitness tests can be indicative of the physical activity levels of a population in certain region. It is therefore very clear that assessing fitness in adolescents can provide valuable health information. So many countries and territories actually have included field-based fitness tests in their national fitness monitoring surveillance systems, especially compared to lab-based tests. Those field-based tests are non-invasive, cost-effective, relatively simple, and more feasible for large populations, but they still keep great reliability and validity. Despite the great potential of fitness assessment for monitoring and surveillance, the major limitation has been the inconsistencies in fitness tests and protocols used across so many national testing systems and test batteries for use, which limits comparabilities. These inconsistencies hamper the data pooling and interpretation of the fitness test results when compared to representative normal values or sex and age-specific health-related cut points. So it is the time that we have a international consensus on the core physical fitness tests and their corresponding protocols globally. Therefore, the objective of our current study was to seek a international consensus on a proposed evidence-informed Wi-Fi battery and protocols for health monitoring and surveillance in children and adolescents aged 6 to 18 years. So this study is actually already related to 3 of the 10 international priorities for international service using common measures developed universal health-rated fitness cut points and develop international field-based fitness tests for a physical fitness research and surveillance among children and adolescents recently identified by international fitness experts. So for reaching an international consensus, a Durfee study is a logical step to achieve this. Our Durfee study builds on 2 major evidence-based sources. First is the EU-funded project and a IOM report, Institute of Medicine, which now currently named as National Academy of Medicine from the USA. So the EU-funded Alpha project and the IOM report both recommended a set of tests with a systematic review evidence pertaining to their reliability, predictive, and criteria validity, and discuss their feasibility to be implemented in school settings. Therefore, we believe that our proposed Wi-Fi battery, aligned with those recommended by the 2 projects, is considered as evidence-based, valid, reliable, feasible, and safe. The proposed contest for the monitoring and surveillance in children and adolescents include weight and height for computing body mass index for body size and composition, and 20-meter short run test for cardiorespiratory fitness, hand grip strength, standing long jump for muscular fitness. In addition, we propose using the protocol instructions and accompanying videos developed for the health project. And since the IOM report did not recommend specific testing protocols. For our project, the leading group first developed a standardized survey that outlined the evidence for each proposed test. including the details on the proposed test protocols, while we receiving feedback from the pilot group. And at the same time, we selected our Durfee experts from work sources. First, many participants are from this fitness meeting held last year. And second, we did a Skivo search. It is a library database categorizing Scopus publication into different topic clusters. So we find the topic cluster related to physical fitness and then screened our experts. So third, we ran additional search of the expert space search to identify top researchers who have published in the area of pediatric physical fitness. Finally, we searched our personal networks to identify additional people with experts in fitness testing among children and adolescents while trying to prioritizing those from low and middle income countries and women to ensure that we obtain insights from a gender and internationally diverse expert group. This is a general timeline of our work, start from the idea of from last year's fitness meeting and preparation, data collection, drafting our manuscript and submit. So last week, we have just received the feedbacks from the editors, and we're trying to send back our answers and revisions this or next week. So hopefully it will be published soon. Our main results, first is a detailed gender and region description of our respondents. So we have invited 216 fitness experts, 169, including 3 women has responded, resulting in a 78% rate from 50 countries and territories. Geographically, over half our respondents are from Europe, followed by Americas, with a balanced distribution between North and South America, and then followed by Africa, Asia, and Asia. So this figure shows the percentage of the agreement from the 169 experts for each fitness measure and their protocol by total sample and gender. So the green bar represents the agreement rate of the measure, and the yellow bar represents the agreement rate of their corresponding protocol. So for the measure of the green bar, we could see from the total sample and by gender that the percentage agreement was all above 80%, which is our targeted consensus. So we preclude the need for a second Durfee survey round. While the agreement for using BMI was the lowest at 87 in the total sample and 85 in the males, while agreements obtained for other measures were all above 90% in the total sample or by gender. The levels of agreement for the test protocols in yellow were also all above 80% in the full sample and by gender, also precluding the need for a second Durfee survey round. By the world region, the agreement of the measures were all above 80%. So we could say in the green bar, they are all above 80%. So levels of agreement for the test protocols also over 80% for most world regions. There were, however, so the yellow bar, however, 4 out of the 12 of the 64 bars are somewhat lower than the percentage in certain regions, where like the percentage only 68 of North American participants agree with the protocol for BMI. And we also did not attain the threshold for the 20-meter short run test, hand grip strength, and standing long jump protocols in order. It is important to note that choosing not agree in the survey does not necessarily mean that disagreement with proposed protocol, but it was the way with which for the Durfee expert to provide opinions, modifications, suggestions, observations. So in such cases, these suggest slight modifications to the protocols and or considerations. And these comments were discussed and modified later by the author groups and have reached a final consensus with the Delphi experts. So our main finding first is the five core measurements, height, weight for computing BMI, body size composition, 20-meter short run test, cardiorespiratory fitness, standing long jump, and hand grip strength for muscular fitness. The protocol consensus is a very big achievement for me. So as we all know that the five core measurements has actually been largely used across many tests and in many national surveillance and systems. But there's still inconsistencies among their protocols. For example, we all know that hand grip strength test that some of the tests might use their dominant record the dominant hand's maximal scores, and some may average uh, three times scores, and some might average their two-hand scores. So all these detailed inconsistency in protocols make the data pooling and the interpretation of the data hard to be compared with others. So strict adherence to the recommended protocol is of utmost importance for us for this research because we have made a huge contribution to discuss with all the detailed protocols with the experts and finally reach the consensus. So this is the first time, as far as we are aware, that protocols have sent to experts from all over the world and to reach a consensus. The implications of our study, first, this study contributes to the standardization of tests and protocols used across the world, which will allow data pooling, international monitoring, and surveillance among use. Second, countries, regions, research projects planning to conduct new fitness testing can consider this current fitness test in addition to any other test relevant to their purpose. And third, countries, regions, and projects that already have fitness testing systems can consider the inclusion of these core tests. Okay, that's the end of my presentation, and welcome to any questions.
Thank you, Kai. Does anyone have questions for Kai? I should mention that Fran wasn't able to attend the meeting today, so he sends his regrets. But Fran also played a really big role in leading this project. And we have just gone through peer review and resubmission. Um, so hopefully this paper will be published and accepted very, very soon. And I think it's a really big step for international surveillance and monitoring in fitness to kind of really focus on core measures and ensuring that we're using the exact same protocols between and within countries to be able to make these comparisons. So I really do hope that this is a big step for us and that people do work towards implementing this within their respective countries. Okay, if nobody has any comments or questions or anything to add, um, we can move on to our next presentation. So next up is Kanil. Would you like to share your screen? Perfect, thank you. We can see.
Oh. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Let me get right onto it. Well, I'm Kanyile Dlamini from Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. I'm presenting on a project that we started fairly recently. We in Zimbabwe are fairly newbies to all this about fitness testing and so on. So it's very exciting to be on this platform with all of you. Right, let me get on to the presentation. The project, or the what I'm going to present on, is about implementing a fitness testing and measurement system in physical education, the Zimbabwe Schools project. I will start with just showing you some of the research team members and who else I'm working with on this project. So it's a national project, and we have got the core researchers and some people from each region or province of Zimbabwe. So that's why we have the research assistants, 10 provincial coordinators, and 80 PE teachers. And we also have some advisors from the international world who have been helping us. There's Taru Manyanga and Professor Diraida from South Africa. They have been really instrumental in kicking off such projects of this nature in Zimbabwe. In the outline, I want to talk about what are our challenges and how we are currently addressing them. I would also want to introduce the Zimbabwe Fitness Project and the physical education teacher training workshops, and lastly talk about the future plans that we have. Okay, evidence demonstrates strong links between physical activity, nutritional status, physical fitness, and health and well-being among children and youth. So it's really important to monitor these indicators so that we have got valuable data for implementing public health strategies. Now, in countries like ours, which are low and middle income, we lack the robust surveillance systems, and thus it also leads to the lack of poor quality data. Okay, we move on to what are our problems and current solutions. Okay, so the first one is that we've got limited data on the nutritional status, physical fitness, and physical activity. So our solution to that is that we rely on data from elsewhere to interpret our own. But at times you can find some key contextual differences which can create some problems or discrepancies there. Okay, then we've got limited skills in learner profiling, which is why we have undergone some programs to try and do some capacity building and continuously train teachers and student teachers. Then we have got gaps in standards for assessment of physical education in Zimbabwe. So currently the solution is that we have had some changes in our curriculum over the years. We had one in 2015. We're currently reviewing the current syllabus or curriculum. And then we had a Zimbabwe school health policy out in 2018. This was in response to trying to catch up with the world trends, where with the physical education class, we want also to look at the mental side, to look at the physical literacy and so on. Because currently we are not really having that as practice in our classes and our teaching and learning. And then limited skills in profiling. We have got we have formed the Zimbabwean PE Teachers Association. It's called ZIPESTA. So that's where we do some of the training, and we've had a few conferences over the years to try and start to have these communities of practice coming up and trying to improve our running of the PE classes and in general the assessment standards. Okay, so we move on to the project that we're currently doing. It's entitled The Nutritional Status, Physical Fitness, and Lifestyle Behaviors of Zimbabwean Adolescent Learners. So a little bit about the project. This is a follow-up study to one we did on elementary school children in 2021. So it's a national survey which covers all the 10 provinces in Zimbabwe. And the data, we're going to use it to have national report cards and other national surveillance. So this study or this project is supported by the Ministry of Education, and government is really interested in this data because we don't really have much data of this kind covering the whole nation. So it's going to help us to create national guidelines and normative data. We can take a look at the project objectives. We wanted to describe the nutritional status of secondary school learners in terms of weight and their growth status, to describe their physical fitness levels, to describe the physical activity, and also to determine the secondary school learners' dietary habits in terms of their food consumption frequencies. Then the study design. It was a cross-sectional study covering all the 10 provinces. So we recruited 2,445 students or learners from 20 administrative districts, which was across our 10 provinces in Zimbabwe. And the measures, we did anthropometry as height and weight, then physical activity. We had the questionnaire for physical activity, questionnaire for adolescents. For the dietary habits, we used the food frequency questionnaire. And then the fitness measures. We looked at cardiorespiratory fitness, that is the beep test, leg power, standing broad jump was the test, upper body strength, we used the hand grip test, for flexibility, sit and reach, and then we did sit-ups to have, just to find out their muscular endurance. So far, we've only done one round of data collection, and this project is funded by the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education. So we wanted to do, not wanted, but the plan is to do 2 more rounds so that we have 3 time points that we're collecting this same data over. So that's that about the project we are doing currently in Zimbabwe. Now I'm going to move on to the capacity building and staff development part of my presentation. Okay, our university, that's the National University of Science and Technology, in collaboration with MOPSE, that's the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education, and MHTE, that's the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education in Zimbabwe, embarked on the capacity building of PE teachers. And this is because we found that there was not much being done in terms of objectively assessing PE in our country. And there was a lack of common ground. So we decided, let's go to the drawing board and see how we can start to address this challenge. So hence all these trainings that we began to embark on. So we focused on field tests because those are accessible to everybody, whether it's a rural school or an urban school, or it's a private school or government school. So those were easier for us to roll out to everybody. Then there's also the side of the Active Healthy Kids Zimbabwe report card working group. So the report card development process is the one which provided a platform for us to have some research and advocacy for children's health and wellness. This working group has been part of the Active Healthy Kids Global Alliance and the Global Matrix initiatives, where each country develops a report card. So data from all these projects that we have begun to embark on will inform the grading. So particularly this one for the secondary schools, because we added fitness tests to it, we will have some data at least for the fitness indicator for the first time in Zimbabwe. So it's exciting for us. Then we also have the capacity building, which I've already talked about. And we're also receiving great mentorship on manuscript writing and development of presentations and data collection. Okay, so I go back to the training workshops. They started in November 2023, and then where we trained 120 teachers in the capital, Harare. And then in the next year, these 120 teachers went to back to their provinces, and they trained 200 teachers in each of their provinces. But of course, the core team who did this training, we were going around these provinces to embark on this training and just maintain the same standard that everyone is taught the same thing. So that initial group is back again in these months of August and September for further training. So just an overview of the structure of this training. We have coined this project that we've embarked on, the capacity building, ZimFit, as in Zimbabwe Fitness. So we're just saying level one, we're just introducing our teachers and our lecturers to the whole aspect of objective testing and measurement. Then level two will be intermediate stuff where we start to do a bit more advanced measures there. And then the level three will be the advanced, where we'll have a few people being the core group that will be in each province. So the idea is that when we have this core group of trained personnel in each province, then we can start to support school sport programs, as in monitoring their training, evaluating and profiling athletes from the school sport right up to the elite sport. So that is the whole plan there. And then the future direction, we're hoping that since we'll be having teachers trained in each of our provinces, and we have a base and now to form schools of excellence in each province, which will pave way for better surveillance systems to be put in place. So that is our hope, that is our plan. And I would like to thank you so much for this opportunity to share our activities in Zimbabwe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was a very good presentation. Are there any questions from the audience? Please feel free to raise your hand. Very quiet group today. Okay, I have two questions. So first, I really want to congratulate you because we know that there's a big data gap in Africa in general, and it's really nice to see that your country and your group are leading these efforts to fill an important need. So I really want to congratulate you, and I appreciate the fact that you're using this project to develop capacity within the country. I think that's a really important component. So congratulations for adding that in. my one question, or I have two questions. So one, I'm really interested in hearing about the experience of the children who are taking part in these tests. Are these,
Okay.
in general, are these very new to them, and do they have a hard time learning how to do the protocol? Or is this something that is easy for children in Zimbabwe to understand and complete?
Okay, thank you so much for your question. Thank you so much for the encouragement. In our experience as we went around the country, we found that in some of the regions or provinces, this was totally new to the children. But what I found about them was it was very, very interesting to them. Once they learn the test, they would be so happy to do it again, and they'll be so excited and enthusiastic. I'll give an example of the cardiorespiratory fitness, the 20-meter shuttle run. In some of the schools that we went to, you'd find that the children will say, from now on, we're going to have this as a permanent feature. So some of the teachers would then report to us. And even if we pass through those schools for certain other business at a certain time point, you'd find that they've permanently marked these beep test areas, and the teachers tell us that these students are coming to ask for the speaker, and during break time they're actually playing the beep as a game to say, next time those people come from the government to come and test us, we must be better. So it was really motivational for them. So that was quite thrilling for us to find that there is some change in behavior, which was almost instant, just by introducing these tests to the children. So that was our experience, and it was really encouraging.
Wow.
Was there a second question, or that was the first?
I have one more question. That's
Okay.
really nice to hear, and it's nice that this is kind of, the purpose is to get data on the fitness of children, but it's really leading to children becoming more active, which is the goal, right?
Absolutely.
So that's
Absolutely.
really nice. So the other question I have is, so when data is collected in the field, how
Mhm.
how does it roll up to the main site where all the data is pooled? So what's the process in place? Because I can imagine that it might be different in other countries, and it'd be nice to hear a little bit more about the procedures in place to make sure that all the data is pooled together at the end.
Okay. So what we did, as I said, that we trained the 80 teachers. So the 80 teachers were the research assistants. So they were trained in the protocols, trained in how to record the data. But there's a core team that would go around the provinces from the ministry with NAST and the two ministries. So what would happen is we would go out, collect the data. If it's questionnaires, they fill them in hard copies, and we collect them when we leave the schools. And then after we've gone around the whole country, we sit at a common place or city, normally the capital, Harare or Bulawayo, where NAST is, and we start to capture the data and then put it in one database and begin the analysis. Though that was it's very challenging now to the capture, the physical capturing of data and so on. But yeah, that's how we found it would be the best, because with other smaller projects before, you'd find if you leave and say they'll post the questionnaires, there's a lot of loss that happens at times. You never get to that place again, or there's long stories. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Taru?
First of all, I'm very proud, and I want to say congratulations to Kanyile. This is exciting sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I was just saying first, congratulations, Kanyile. This is exciting. And I just wanted to add, like the vision we have in Zim is so we can have a national surveillance system as fitness being one of the first indicators. So the idea is to develop a system that we end up with a platform where we can actually almost like where we can have this data captured and input from different levels of the country. So slowly but surely we'll get there, one step at a time. We just, as Kanyile was eloquently explaining, we are very committed to doing it and doing it well. I mean, even if it takes us a while, but we want to try and do it as well as we can. So thank you, Kanyile, for all that.
Thank you so much, Taro.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone have one last question before we move on? Okay. Okay, so those were kind of the featured presentations. Those are the ones that had kind of the most time to go through. Now we're going to move to part 2, which is going to be more of kind of a rapid fire format. So we're going to have, 5-minute presentations followed by 2 minutes of questions and answers. And if the questions continue, we might have to put a stop, and then you guys could ask questions in the chat and the presenter could answer. Although I think we're well ahead of schedule, so that probably won't happen. All right, so next up is Claudia.
Thank you, Justin. So I share my slides. At the moment, I can't share. Can you share it, Justin, the presentation for me?
How about now I changed one of the settings, so maybe it'll work.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now it works.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. We can see.
So, do you see only the slides or the everything?
Yeah, the PowerPoint, the whole PowerPoint.
Okay,
But it's
let me
okay
change.
if that's
I can change to the presentation. Now, do you see everything?
Nope, nothing yet.
No? Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Okay, so I'll try it like this.
Yeah, I think that's fine if you just keep
Okay.
the PowerPoint that way.
Okay. Is it big enough for you?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, thank you, Justin. Thank you for organizing this meeting. My name is Claudia Niesner, and I'm from the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, that's in southern Germany. And there I'm leading a young investigator group on physical fitness research. And I'm leading the MOMO study. This is a representative study on physical fitness for Germany. And today I will present to you the project Mori Data. This is a project on data sharing. So what is the background? So what we want to present to you is that there are a lot of studies that have shown a high willingness to share own data and have a high interest in using foreign data in different scientific disciplines. And in Germany, more than 80% of the German-speaking sports scientists are interested in data sharing. And also, Justin, and I think a lot of you were involved in publishing the 10 international priorities we heard before on physical fitness research in 2023. And one of these aims was the aim 10. And it said that one aim is to develop an international fitness data repository. So that is what we are already working on with our e-research infrastructure, MoriData. MoriData means motor research data and is an e-research infrastructure for sports science, especially motor performance and physical fitness data. And it was initiated in 2014 and funded by the German Research Foundation. And the MoriData platform aims to provide a central solution for managing, for pooling, and for storing and reusing physical fitness data, so that everyone can publish data on motor performance or physical fitness and get a DOI, that's a digital object identifier you already know from the text publications. So that if someone uploads their data sets, they can be cited. The access is free and it's an open access database. And here on the slides, I posted the link to information to the database and the project and the access to the database, so you can see what we are doing there. The motor performance test items we use in this database are selected on their use internationally. So the current conducted Delphi survey, Justin mentioned at the beginning, will be very helpful because that are the common international physical fitness tests, which are really used a lot and where we have a lot of data. That means like standing long jump, hand grip, flamingo balance, and so on. The platform allows scientists from various disciplines to upload their data to address significant interdisciplinary questions, especially those related to physical fitness and health issues. And it will make it easier to regularly create fitness maps, like the European Fitness Landscape, for example, if many of us researchers in physical fitness use this database in the future. However, we also face some challenges, particularly regarding data protection laws that prevent us from making sensitive health data such as BMI or blood pressure publicly accessible. So we are working on extending the e-research infrastructure in different ways to develop it into a research data center for physical fitness. The tasks of this research data center are a bit broader. Firstly, to provide information and support for data sharing. And second, at the moment, the database has only the opportunity to share, to publish your data open access for everyone. But we are currently developing solutions that will also allow secure access to sensitive data without compromising privacy, so that the user can choose between open access or a restricted way of data publishing. Our vision for MoriData and for the Research Data Center is to be used more internationally, encouraging collaboration and network building. So we are planning to setting up a website with information and links to already existing international databases and platforms in sports science, focusing on data sharing of physical fitness or motor performance data. For example, there is the Combine project. They have data on motor development tests, and the Fitback project should also be named here. And second, we are working on a discussion and consensus paper with the working title Opportunities and Challenges on Data Sharing in Physical Fitness Research with this best practice examples. So if you are interested in data sharing, or you have an infrastructure or another best practice example for data sharing, please let us know. We would be happy and open about your contribution. And yeah, so I think now we have 2 minutes for questions. I would be delighted to answer any questions and greatly appreciate any interest in collaboration with us and sharing your data or use the data which is already in the database. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Claudia. Any questions for Claudia? Yes, very quiet group. Last year we had a lot
You can
more.
also email me if
Yeah.
you have later on some questions, how to publish the data or how to use the data which is inside. So I think, Justin, you share the slides later on.
Yep, I'll share the slides. Okay, well, I have a question. I'll ask questions. So how much data do you currently have within your database?
Yeah. At the moment, it's mainly data from Germany because of the data protection law. And it's about, I talk about person data. I think it's about 25,000 person data because we there have the big German studies which upload their data there. Yeah, that's the actual number. And at the moment, it's very hard to get data because we have to contact the researchers personally. But I hope that in future, if we also have some secure ways, not only to share the data open access, I hope that there will be more researchers using our database, because you can later on use the data like a publication. You get a DOI, and if you say, Justin, oh, I need this data for the European Fitness Landscape, then I can say, yeah, it's inside there. You can use the DOI and the data.
Okay, Mark has a question.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Claudia. I just want you to know I saw your presentation another time, I forget what meeting or whatever, and so investigated some of the data sets that I have, whether I could share them. And sadly, and I really don't see this changing very quickly, at least in Canada. So the specific one I explored was in reference to the Canadian Assessment of Physical Literacy. Just part of Justin's dissertation used this, and we have data on 10,000 kids across Canada, lots of the measures that you're interested in, and it's all anonymized and everything, but still, I explored it with our research ethics, and there's absolutely no way ever we'll be able to share that. And I don't want to belabor this, but I've had the good fortune of being given data from way back in time as well, which would be fantastic historical data, to look at trends and so on. And we've had to destroy them, like literally shred them and never use them again, because they were collected in days before there was even informed consent. And so the assumption, the laws of today are imposed on them in the past. Justin and I just went through this with a PhD student as well, where we wanted to try and link to other Canadian data, and as it turns out, those data will end up in the garbage bin as well. So I'm ranting a bit because I'm so frustrated with this. There's so much good information there, and so much potential should we be allowed to collaborate, but we can't. At least that's been my experience, but I did try.
Thank you very much. I fully understand what you mean. So I hope that in future, when we have the consent, the informed consent from the people, we can use this data. But since it's the same in Germany, it's really hard to share, although this data is anonymized. So yeah, that's a great problem. So that is what we want to do, is that we set up this research data center, so that perhaps we can connect each other without directly sharing the data, but sharing that someone has data. So then we could generate a website where there's, okay, Mark Tremblay has 10,000 data of Canadian children, and please contact him. I think sometimes this is the only solution we can do at the moment, but I think that also would be helpful, so that we have an overview of existing data sets.
Yeah. I saw Farid's hand go up, and then it went down, and then went back up again. Do you have a question, Farid?
Yeah, well, actually, just kind of building on what Mark was saying, even though we might not be able to change what's happened in the past, it might be worthwhile, and that can be through the discussion paper, to set up like a framework and guidance for people who are starting new data collection, to support them in terms of how do we navigate ethical approval, how do we navigate setting up kind of a pipeline that would help make this data more openly accessible. And that's just kind of with the vision of looking forward, because I do think that there are a lot of people who want to share their data, but they might not kind of find it easy kind of to actually get to that, and kind of having like a kind of a shared resources or like a culture, and this group can be one of them, could kind of maybe facilitate that for future data collections.
Yeah, that should be one part of the discussion paper, and I think it would be great if we do it in a greater group, so that we have information from different countries. So what are the challenges in Germany? What are challenges in Canada? So like this, so that the researchers who capture data the first time know what to ask the participants, that they can use the data later on. Yeah, thank you.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Claudia. I think there are 2 questions for you in the chat. Now we'll move on to Rachel and Janine. These are our colleagues who work with me in the Government of Canada, and they're involved in a national data collection called the Canadian Health Measures Survey. And so they want to share with you how data are collected in that context, which is very different from what many other people experience through the schools. So I think Janine will be presenting.
Yeah, that's right. Good morning. You can hear me okay?
Yep.
Hold on.
Perfect.
All right. It's working?
Yep.
Good. Yeah, so I'm Janine Clark. I work in the Centre for Direct Health Measures at Statistics Canada, and like Justin said, we're responsible. Our biggest survey right now is the Canadian Health Measures Survey, but there's also a few other surveys involving direct health measures that have taken place or will soon be starting. So today, I'll very, very quickly give an overview of the CTMS, go through the fitness measures that we have, and then speak to some of the challenges and lessons learned that we've had from those, and then obviously a bit of time for questions. So the CTMS, it's a national survey, so it takes place over a 2-year cycle. In a given cycle, there's approximately 16 collection sites that are spread out across our provinces. We've never actually been into the North Territories with our survey, and you'll understand why when you see the picture of the trailer that goes around the country. But it does capture a large representative sample of the population. It consists of a household interview that happens face-to-face in the person's home, followed by a visit to what we call a mobile examination center or clinic, where all of the physical measures are taken and blood and urine samples are collected. And then those samples are sent off to laboratories for testing. And then we also store blood, urine, and saliva samples in a national biobank that we have through partnership with the Public Health Agency of Canada. So in terms of fitness measures, I'll very quickly go through the ones that we've collected over the years. And this is really focusing on the physical fitness, but I did actually this morning just add a slide that summarizes some of the other direct measures that are included, because some of them certainly could fall into the realm of fitness in some way, shape, or form, especially in terms of relationships and research. So one of the tests that we've done only in early cycles was partial curl-ups. So that was as a measure of muscular endurance. So we did that in those age 6 to 79, and we followed protocol from one of our national bodies, the Canadian Society for Exercise Physiology. And so the test was done at the clinic, and the results were provided back to the participant based on some normative values that are available through that CSEP protocol. The MCAFT, Modified Canadian Aerobic Fitness Test, is a submaximal test of aerobic fitness, and so it involves going up and down stairs for a series of minutes, and you continue on to different stages based on whether or not your heart rate is below a set threshold for your age and sex. So that was done. It actually started in the early cycles, age 6 to 69. But later on, we only did it in ages 8 to 69, and it also followed protocols and norms from our CSEP group. Although in children, because CSEP is only for older age groups, it followed some protocols from a much earlier fitness survey that was carried out in Canada. Test of flexibility was a simple sit and reach test. So similarly, it took place in age 6 to 69, and it followed the same protocols from either CSEP or past fitness survey. Grip strength is one that has been done in most cycles so far, although it was not included in our latest cycle, cycle 7. And so it's a test of maximal strength. So you grip the flexometer once in each hand or twice in each hand, and then combine the scores for a maximal strength value. Another test that was added in later cycles it's actually 2 tests of jumping. There was a hopping test where on the force plate, people would carry out 10 straight legs hops as fast as possible. And then the jumping test, as you can see in the little video, and that's my colleague Aiden, who's on the call as well, demonstrating. So that was a maximal vertical jump. So just very quickly, I think I captured everything. So those are the other physical measures that have been captured over the years, anthropometry and blood pressure in all cycles. And then the other ones have varied depending on the cycles over the years. So in terms of challenges, definitely the MEC, the Mobile Examination Center, presents some challenges. So what's pictured there is the front side of one of the trailers that goes around the country and gets set up. And the top image there is the floor plan. So it's actually 3 trailers that get attached together. the configuration within the trailer is modified with each cycle to accommodate the different tests that are needed. But as you can imagine, the dimensions are not very large, and so we have to be pretty creative in terms of using the space. The other factor is that because they're trailers, there's a lot of noise transfer, movement transfers. So when you're doing things like the step test or the jumping, it creates noise and vibration that can carry over to people that might be doing something like resting blood pressure, or when we did spirometry testing, people used to be really emphatic with yelling and trying to get people to blow as forcefully as they could, and so that would often carry over. So depending on the tests that are being done, that can be a little bit problematic at times. The other thing in terms of the fact that the trailer goes across the country is that the equipment during travel is exposed to the movement of travel in the trailers, as well as extreme temperatures during our extreme summer and winter months. So that's actually posed some issues for some of the equipment that's more sensitive, like the DEXA and the vision testing equipment. We had a lot of trouble with them not working and needing a lot of repairs over the course of collection. Time is definitely an issue. We already take up at least an hour or more of time at the person's home. And then there are some cycles where the clinic visit has been over 2 hours. And so we do try to minimize the amount of time that people need to spend there. And so that does limit the types of tests that we can consider including and how many tests in a given cycle that we can include. And then one last thing is adherence to protocol. So I mentioned before that in the fitness, the aerobic test, it started in 6-year-olds, but then we found that they just really, as children, were unable to maintain the cadence of the test. They weren't coordinated enough to do the repeated stepping up and down at a certain pace that was needed. And so we actually had to bump up the starting age group because we weren't getting good data quality for that. And then I know the sit-ups, also the curl-ups were one that was challenging to get certain age groups and even people in general to adhere to the protocol. So in terms of future opportunities, we're currently in cycle 7 collection, and cycle 8 is set to start next year. So that'll be a 2-year cycle, and there's no major changes planned at this point. So it's going to look a lot like cycle 7, but there are a lot of things that we're looking at exploring just to be able to expand the potential of what we can collect, but then also a lot of it is that we're seeing a lot of decline in response rates and participation. So I think different alternative solutions could be really good for getting people to come and participate. So we've got ideas such as using community spaces instead of using those trailers. So that would allow us to maybe do some tests like I think it was Mark that mentioned Capel that includes something like a shuttle run. So it requires a lot more space than what we have in the trailer. We also have what we now call a van or an RV. And so that's something that might allow us to be a little bit more mobile with going to somebody's home maybe, or having more localized collection as opposed to one site that an entire municipality comes to. We might be able to be more mobile. And then similarly, we're looking at ways that we might be able to leverage data from wearables that people already have and wear regularly. And then the last thing just to mention is that we do now have some record linkage of our data. So the earlier cycles are linked to some of our data sets with deaths and hospital visits and the cancer registry. So that just expands the analytical potential of our data. And I think that's it. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Janine. One additional thing to mention is that I believe there's a website. So if you're interested in the study and you want to know more about the protocols and the different measures taken, because there are quite a few, you can look up Canadian Health Measures Survey online and pull up the website. So
yeah, I can put it in the chat right now.
Oh,
actually.
That'd be great. Okay. Any questions for Janine? Okay, so we're quickly catching up to where
Justin,
we were.
I'll just jump in just for a
go
sec,
ahead.
just to say that there is a publication on this sort of related to this, not fitness centric, but more challenges with the CHMS more generally. I'm just finding it in my CV, and I'll put it in the chat if people are interested in looking at just the challenges of a direct health measures survey in a circumpolar country.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we're going to move on to the next presentation. Brendan? There we go.
Hi, Justin. Thank you. 2 seconds. Okay, that appearing okay for you?
Yep.
Great. So, hi everyone. My name is Brendan O'Keefe. I'm an associate professor of physical education in the Department of Physical Education and Sports Sciences at the University of Limerick. And my presentation today is going to be focusing on achieving scientific and pedagogical rigor in monitoring health-related fitness in schools and learnings from the YouthFit study in Ireland. And thanks to Justin for the opportunity to present today. So the data I'll present will be based on 2 studies in particular. One was a test-retest reliability of student-administered health-related fitness tests in school settings, and that's available at the QR code that will appear throughout the presentation. And the second is students' attitudes towards and experiences of the YouthFit health-related fitness test battery, again at the QR code there, and will be available at the end of the presentation. So, as many on the call will know, there has been a huge amount of debate surrounding the place of fitness testing, specifically in schools and gathering data in schools. And for many years, the horse was used as an analogy for some reason. And we've gone from back in the 90s, a suggestion or an article title that the horse is dead, that we should dismount it, to the horse is not dead. So what should we do? Moving on to more than 10 years after the horse is dead, surely it must be time to dismount. And finally, most recently, turns out we had been riding the wrong animal all along and we should mount the zebra. So a lot of debate, a lot of vociferous debate and conflicting arguments. So essentially what, in my opinion, a lot of this had come down to was the balance between education or learning and gathering data in school settings. And this is very much the premise of the YouthFit study in Ireland, which aim was to develop a pedagogically sound and scientifically rigorous approach to administering fitness tests in school-based physical education. So essentially what we wanted to do was marry both the data gathering elements of it and also the learning and education component of it in the best way possible. So the rationale behind, firstly, in terms of data gathering, well, everyone on the call will know that in any testing situation, it is important that the results are derived from high quality measurement techniques, but maximizing this validity and reliability in school settings, it presents a significant challenge. And most research examining the reliability of field-based tests in youth involved trained test administrators in standardized and controlled settings. And anyone that has gathered data among large populations in schools know that this often is not the environment you are met with. So it's often not feasible for one PE teacher or even a trained administrator to administer a full test battery to a large group of students within a specified time or a physical education lesson time. In terms of education then, well, research has indicated that students are more in favor of a student-centered approach to fitness testing so either self or peer administration, as opposed to having their measures taken by teachers or trained external researchers, and some examples of studies there that have analysed this question specifically. So the methods for the test-retest study that we conducted were, we had 86 participants who were divided into two groups, quite a simple study design. We had a student-administered group and a research assistant-administered group. The research assistants were very experienced. They were postgraduate researchers in the Department of Physical Education here at the University of Limerick. And the students were located from the school which we went to. So the student-administered group had their measures taken by 8 students, and the research assistant-administered group had their measures taken by 8 research assistants. And the tests were very much based on the AlphaFit test battery, which was mentioned earlier in the meeting, with some additional test items. So we had body mass index, hand grip strength, standing broad jump, 20-meter shuttle run, and other measures included isometric plank hold, 90-degree push-up, and blood pressure. So what did we find? Well, overall, interestingly, we found both in terms of absolute and relative indices of reliability, there was very little difference in terms of the data gathered among the student assistant measure group and the research assistant measure group. So if we take a relative measure of reliability, the interclass correlation coefficient, we found values on average of roughly 0.9 and higher, which is considered very, very good to excellent. And in terms of absolute reliability, then our coefficient of variation figure across both student and research assistant measures group was very low across most tests. You'll see some exceptions there. For example, the 90-degree push-up, and there was one other called the Backsaver sit and reach test as well, was among the higher coefficients. But overall, across the other test items, very, very reliable, both absolute and relative indices. Just graphically depicting it then, these are Bland-Altman plots, and we see that in both on the left and right of the screen, the student-administered and the research assistant-administered test falling within the vast majority of data, with some exceptions falling within the 95% limits of agreement for both the standing long jump and the hand grip strength tests in particular. So in conclusion then, fitness test battery coordinators and PE teachers, who were often responsible for administering these tests, particularly among the whole country efforts at gathering fitness data, that they should consider involving their students and teaching them the protocols around how to use the tests, and the learning element can really come to the fore. And what we have shown is that if that learning element is included, then the test validity, the test reliability is often as good as trained administrators. So just to finish, the YouthFit underpinning principles, the YouthFit Ireland underpinning principles, just to highlight 3, the importance of familiarization. If you're testing students, it's very important that the data that you're gathering, it's not the first time they've completed a test, because there likely will be a learning effect. For example, I'm confident if someone was to perform a standing broad jump for the first time, I could teach them some techniques or give them some cues to improve their distance even within one session. So it's really important we include some familiarization. Where assistants are available in a school setting, they encourage the teacher to avail of students that have a passion for activity and health and sport to assist them in the delivery of the test. And then in terms of the actual delivery, ideally avoid whole group delivery where possible. That may not be possible for some tests, but administering in smaller groups of maybe 4 to 5, the students have indicated that that's more comfortable for them. So that's my presentation, and thank you to Justin once again. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, we have Caddy.
Hi, Brendan. Thanks very much for your presentation. Did you have any concerns about if the participants tested their friends, for example, or did you try and match them up with people that they maybe weren't friends with and then weren't going to potentially overinflate their scores?
So the protocol we used, thanks for your question, Caddy. The protocol that we used was that the 8 student administered administrators were actually older students within the secondary school. So they didn't usually, they may have had a relationship, I'm not sure, with the younger students in the school, but they were outside of the class, and likely that they would not have known the students who they were helping through the testing situation. But yeah, so that probably would help in that regard. But I appreciate what you're saying, that if two very close friends are testing each other, how reliable is that data? But I think that comes back to maybe the ability of the teacher or the administrator to see and to recognize data that may not be accurate. But, so yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's one more question in the chat, and this is a question that I was going to ask as well. In Canada, we have, I speak with many physical educators, and we have, it seems to be a problem or a misunderstanding when collecting these measures within the school environment, that we might make some children uncomfortable, or it's not an equitable thing, in that there might be some people who are unable to participate, feeling left out. So what are the strategies that your group uses to deal with these scenarios?
Yeah, thank you. A really good question. I think I mentioned a few strategies in the second last slide that we use, and I think one of the most important ones in that, I'd give two. Firstly, that the students are given a chance to familiarize themselves with the data collection process, so that their first experience of the test isn't the day that the data is gathered, that there's a kind of a learning emphasis, so that you might even do it with a group and not collect any data. They're actually just going through the tests and doing them for experience purposes. So in the first place. The second point, I think it's really important that you're aware and the teacher is aware of their students, so what they're capable and not capable of doing. So if there's a student or a group of students in the class that may have additional needs, then you may need to think about how appropriate it is to use a test that they're not able to participate fully in. And that for me is the importance of the link between you, the data collector, and the schools who will be collecting the data, that's made clear. But it's an ongoing challenge, of course, Justin and Tammy, you asked the question. There's no silver bullet solution to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, well, we're going to move on to the next presentation. Susanna was not able to attend the meeting, but her colleague Angelica will present on fitness evaluation in Latin America.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present our work. So let me share my screen. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Susanna asked me to present this today, but I am not presenting about the whole Latin America. I am presenting our projects on physical fitness among Ecuadorian adolescents today. So I will include two topics. First, the results of school-based interventions, and then some physical fitness measurements we have performed before. Okay, so I will start with school-based intervention. So we performed already 10 years ago a school-based intervention to improve physical fitness among Ecuadorian adolescents in Cuenca, which is an Andean city within Ecuador. Our population included 1,440 adolescents, 700 in the intervention group, and the rest in the control group. Among 20 schools, again, 10 schools belong to the intervention schools and 10 to the control schools. We developed a behavioral intervention, and we also included some changes in the environment. For example, we included trails and some messages around the school environment to motivate students to be more active during breaks. In the control schools, the students follow the usual school activities without any intervention. And our outcome measurements included physical activity, physical fitness, and also some dietary intake outcomes. I'm only talking in this presentation about the physical fitness results. So this is a summary of the effect that we found related physical fitness outcomes. So for example, for muscular strength, for hand grip, we didn't find any result after 28 months of intervention. That's important to mention. The intervention lasted 28 months and included two different phases with different educational material and different environmental interventions. Regarding cardiorespiratory fitness, we didn't find any significant effect, but we found a significant effect after 28 months on vertical jump. The adolescents in the intervention group improved their muscular strength according to the vertical jump in comparison with the control schools. This is in summary what we found out. After that, we included our data, we share our data with other 20 trials, and we performed some pooled analysis of individual participants and data for control trials. The analysis included 6,621 children and adolescents aged 4 to 18 years old from 20 interventions. And the outcomes, one of the outcomes included peak oxygen consumption. And with the pooled analysis, we found that interventions improved cardiorespiratory fitness, but with a modest result, as you can see, only by 0.47 milliliters. And we also found out when we analyzed all the data that girls and older students benefit less, which is a problem because, as we know, female children and adolescents are less active, and also they have less physical fit. They have worse physical fitness outcomes. So our study was part of this, and we are also sharing data with this group. So maybe that's interesting to contact the group that is leading this sharing data for the database of sharing data. I think we can also put you in contact with that group. Then regarding the physical fitness measurements we have performed in Cuenca, in the same city that, as I mentioned before, actually we have done 3 studies. One was performed in 2008, and we used the Eurofit battery. In that project, we identified already that cardiorespiratory fitness in urban and rural adolescents was not good. Was a lot of adolescents were below the recommendation for cardiorespiratory fitness. And in that study, we also identify already associations among adolescents, urban and rural adolescents, between physical fitness and cardiovascular risks measured by blood lipid profile. In addition, in 2018, we performed another cross-sectional study. This study was performed among 8 to 12-year-old children and adolescents attending schools in public and private schools in urban areas in Cuenca, again in Ecuador. And at this moment, we identified associations between physical fitness measurements. We applied the AlphaFit battery, and we measured the associations with body fat percentage. And we found already at this early stage associations between cardiorespiratory fitness and body fat, already agility, already muscular strength, as you can see, and body fat. Although the percentage of adolescents with high body fat percentage is not, is small, but we already find these associations in this group of children and adolescents. And of course, we as expected, we identified associations with BMI, gender, female adolescents are at risk as expected. And also we identified relationships with age. This study is not published yet. We are preparing this draft, and that will be submitted in the coming months. Finally, I want to share with you that we were part of the Global Matrix 3, and we are now preparing for Global Matrix 5. So unfortunately, in Ecuador, we don't have national surveys on physical fitness. I will correct myself. There was one national measurement on physical fitness measurements before the pandemic. Actually, it was around 2016. But unfortunately, they didn't report separately for boys and girls. They put together all the data, and we have tried to have access to the original data to split the data for boys and girls. But unfortunately, we don't have access, and it seems that there were some problems with data collection at that survey. So what we have here is based on our study that I mentioned in 2008, for the Global Matrix 3, we already reported some physical fitness measurements, and we can see that we have a lot of issues, a lot of problems. We have also published a manuscript of the percentiles of physical fitness among our samples, and we have identified that our percentiles are lower compared with other publications, although comparable with other publications from Colombia or from Latin America, but lower, for example, if we compare with the European or Canadian or US data. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present. If you have any questions, please let us know now, or I give you my contact for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angelica. We've caught up to the schedule, so now we'll try to stay on track so that we don't go too far over time. So if you have any questions, please put it into the chat and Angelica will be able to answer. So now we'll move on to Caddy.
Yep, thank you, Justin. Just getting my presentation up. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Yep, excellent. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Justin, for the opportunity to present today. Today I'm going to be speaking to you, just giving you an overview of an ongoing project that we've got going on that I'm leading, which is a systematic review with meta-analysis, which is looking at the responsiveness of field-based measures of cardiorespiratory and muscular fitness in children and adolescents. I'm Dr. Katie Weston, and I'm representing the University of Strathclyde today. So just to give you a bit of background as to where this project came from, it was actually something that came up at last year's International Fitness meeting by Dr. Fran Ortega. And then subsequently, we had some communication and started to build a group. And then we applied for some funding through the Royal Society for Edinburgh through the Sapphire Fund, which is aimed at maximising partnerships between Scottish universities and places within Asia. And we were successful in getting that funding, which then allowed us to start to put together quite a global team for this systematic review. So we currently have researchers from Scotland in the UK, also from Canada, from Spain, from Lithuania, from Australia, and from New Zealand. So just to give you a bit of a rationale to our review, as I'm sure everyone's aware, and as we've seen today so far, there are many different field-based tests available for both cardiorespiratory fitness and muscular fitness in children and adolescents. And when I speak about muscular fitness, I'm meaning muscular strength, muscular endurance, and muscular power. But the degree to which these tests actually respond to a period of exercise training remains unknown. So we're very much focusing on the tests here. So the aim of our systematic review, therefore, is to examine the responsiveness of these field-based tests of cardiorespiratory and muscular fitness to intervention in children and adolescents. And when we speak about responsiveness here, what we mean is quantifying it as the probability that a subsequent intervention will identify a greater change in the intervention group compared with the control. So just to now talk you through kind of our PICO method, so our population intervention comparator and outcome for our review that we've done so far. So if I can just draw your attention to table 1, which is our inclusion and exclusion criteria for the review. For our population, we're focusing on adolescents aged between 5.0 and 17.99 years. We made the decision to include participants of any weight status, since there are now so many overweight and obese children within the population. However, we did exclude groups that are specifically patient or clinical populations. We've also included participants of any activity or performance status, which means that we can get youth athletes included in our review. In terms of our intervention, we're looking at supervised and structured sport, exercise or physical activity interventions, which are primarily looking at improving a component of either cardiorespiratory or muscular fitness. This means that interventions that are more general physical activity promotion interventions or are mainly just changes in the environment would not be included, along with studies where the intervention hasn't been adequately described according to the fit components, whether it's been unsupervised or unstructured, or it's combined with a dietary intervention that could then change body mass or adiposity levels within the participants. Now moving on to the comparator. So what we're interested in studies that have got non-treatment control groups or non-active comparators. So what we mean here are participants that have continued with usual training or usual PE lessons, for example, or also ones that have been asked to do nothing whatsoever. We've also included studies where the only intervention the control group receive is if it's general lifestyle advice in the form of a leaflet, for example. And if there are multi-component interventions, we wouldn't be able to isolate the effect of the intervention on the test, then those are also excluded. In terms of outcomes, we've tried to be as broad as possible and have included any field-based measure of cardiorespiratory fitness or muscular fitness. And by that, we mean anything that is semi-portable, so tests that can be done out in the field and aren't laboratory-based. And in terms of publication type, we're looking at randomised control trials of peer-reviewed journal articles. They've been written in English or Spanish and then have taken place when published between 1946 and April 2024, which is when our searches were conducted. And for anyone that's interested, our study is registered on Prospero. The link is here, and I can also put it in the chat afterwards. So to give you an update on where we are with our review, so we searched 6 databases and then everything was put into Covidence. So there was then over 13,000 studies to screen for level 1 screening. So that was title and abstract screening. We then moved forward to level 2 screening, where 534 articles were reviewed for full text reviewing. And then that took us forward to the phase that we're currently on, which is data extraction, which is for 225 studies so far. So data extraction, as you can imagine, is still ongoing because there's a lot of studies included. And along with the normal data extraction variables, such as the participant characteristics, what the intervention involved, and the types of tests included, we're also looking at the fidelity of the intervention, so how well it was delivered. And also from that, we're then looking at expected intervention effectiveness, which we're then going to be quantifying as low, medium, or high across the 4 kind of broad outcomes that we're looking at. We'll next conduct a risk of bias via version 2 of the Cochrane risk of bias tool. So the data analysis plan that our study statistician has put forward so far is the probability, so that responsiveness will be quantified via meta-analysis of the mean difference of the effect sizes for all of the different tests that we pull out from our data extraction. To then account for covariance of multiple data points, which are included within the same study, we'll then adopt a 3-level hierarchical random effects model. And then we'll then create a predictive distribution within a Bayesian framework with weekly informative priors. And then based on this predictive distribution, the probability, that responsiveness element, that a subsequent study will generate an effect size beyond 0, favouring the intervention, will then be calculated. And then we'll then refine these probability estimates using aspects of the intervention itself, so its perceived effectiveness, how long it is, the age of the participants involved, and then this will then be, the certainty will then be estimated even further using the GRADE framework as well. So that's where we are at the moment. Just to give a quick acknowledgement to the team that are working very hard on the data extraction. I would like to thank those that are on the call for doing this, and also just to thank the funder again, so the RSE and the Scottish Government. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, please shout out. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Caddy. Again, we're right on time, so we're going to have to move on to the next presentation. But if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat for Caddy to respond. So up next, we have Evelyn.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Oh, can you see my screen? Okay, thank you. So I said, my name is Evelyn Mäesto, and I'm a researcher at the University of Tartu, Institute of Sports Sciences and Physiotherapy. And thank you for this opportunity. Today I introduce our project that main aim is health and skill-related physical fitness and physical activity of children and youth with disabilities. Unfortunately, right now we know that our answer for our first funding was negative, but we try to continue look at different funding. So this project is not started yet, but we try to. So I like to introduce main aim of this project. I don't know. Okay. So the main aim is to promote the health and well-being of children and youth with disabilities through improving health and skill-related physical fitness and physical activity using the school-based intervention. And why it is a school-based intervention? Because those children have a lot of screen time due to the health conditions, and they have several barriers to participate in physical activity, especially in the free time physical activity, because they have functional limitation, negative self-perceptions, there are high costs and lack of accessible facilities and so on. But those barriers can possibly be eliminated when activities are provided at school, which offer familiar environment, with supported teachers, acceptance by other students, and what is most important, no additional transportation or parent-dependent movement when children already in the school. And in Estonia, we have, I can say, very successful program, School in Motion, which includes right now more than 2,000 schools, and is implementing a whole school approach by creating possibilities to be physical active throughout the school day, including recesses, lessons, school travel, physical education lessons, extracurricular activities, school events, and all these activities are supported in indoors and outdoors. But very few special education schools have joined with this network because there are peculiarities in the curriculum, the structure of the daily schedule are different, and there are different needs of students for supporting learning. So we would like to focus on special education schools, and our project have two parts. There are cross-sectional study to assess health and skill-related physical fitness and physical activity in a representative sample, and to analyze differences between different disability groups, severity of disability, and different age groups, to recognize most vulnerable target groups and to extend these results in more general level. And the other part is longitudinal intervention, focused mainly in active recesses, to evaluate the effect of school-based intervention on health and skill-related fitness, physical activity, also how active recess is related to better well-being and attention and concentration in the following academic lessons. And one part is also to measure teachers' attitudes and opinions about the effectiveness and efficiency of school-based intervention programs that is adapted for children and youth with disabilities. Intervention is a randomized controlled trial with intervention group and waitlist control group. Intervention group will participate in active organized recesses 2 or 3 times per week, and every recess have their own focus. One recess focus on improved health-related fitness, like active movement games. Second one focus to skill-related fitness, different activities targeted to different skills. And third one focus to improve social and interaction and cooperation. Before the intervention, there will be seminars to teachers. Before and after intervention, there will be interviews with teachers. Also, there will be background questionnaires, of course, kids questionnaires for health-related quality of life, physical activity measurements during 7 days, and also different measurements of health and skill-related fitness. And this is a cross-sectional study design. In this cross-sectional study, we would like to recruit as much as children as possible from special education schools. We have about 35 special education schools and over 3,000 children in those schools. And the main aim is to recognize most vulnerable target groups and longitudinal intervention will last about 12 months. Before the intervention, there will be a seminar for teachers, focus groups with teachers. Also, altogether, there are 4 measurement points before the intervention, in the middle of the intervention, and at the end of the intervention. And last one is 3 to 4 months after the intervention is ended. And all the measurements points have the same measurements in fitness and physical activity and questionnaires. And before this larger intervention, there will be a pilot study to assess the suitability of recess activities in the school environment and the applicability of general design of the study. But as I say, it's not this project is not started yet. So this design is our idea or example how we would like to do this intervention. But it does not mean that some part cannot be changed. So we are very open any suggestions and cooperations. And if we do not have funding for the whole project, we would like to start piloting some parts of it, especially those active recess activities. So thank you. And right now for me, it's okay.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. It's a very important project, and I'm happy that you're planning to start that project. I think it's going to be a really important thing for the field. We don't have any time for questions, so please put them in the chat if you do have some. And now we'll move on to Shonda. There you go.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I believe we're up. I'm just going to get to full text. Okay, we're going to stay small, I think, for now. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present for some of the work that we presented this summer at the International Congress for Environmental Ergonomics. Let's see. Okay. So I'm interested in the physiological effects of what's happening with climate change. And we know that there are direct and indirect effects that can really affect how humans are behaving and moving in our changing environments. Specifically, I'm interested in the physiological effects of how can we decrease our risk of heat illness? How can we increase fitness and build resiliency across the lifespan? So we know that children are not just small adults. They actually have an immature thermoregulation system, and this is due to a number of factors, including differences in their body heat storage capacity, changes in their specific surface area, differences in their body fat percentages, and especially sweat gland outputs. skin blood flow, and changes in their cardiorespiratory fitness. And this title, Image from Protecting Children from Heat Stress, is a technical note from UNICEF, which was just published last year as well. So it's an excellent document that provides a lot of countermeasures moving forward. Recently, the Lancet Countdown series also has a health-centered approach towards heat. And this is a figure from the researchers who crunched the numbers to find the average number of hours from 1991 to 2022, where light physical activity would entail a moderate, high, or extreme high heat risk. And they divided these risk stratifications by HDI, and we can see automatically that the low and medium HDI countries have much higher risks of annual hours per person, where they are exposed to high heat, and just moving lightly can put them at higher heat risk. Moving to children, some interesting research from the Canadian and Australian teams several years ago. They were looking at associations between weather, physical activity, and sedentary time in children. And when they overlaid their graphs of the daily minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity or the daily minutes of sedentary behavior from Canada and Australia, we get a really impressive spread of the maximum temperatures that are occurring from -20 up to almost +40. And we can see that there's sort of a Goldilocks zone here between 5 and 25 degrees Celsius, where we have an increase or an optimization of daily minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity and a reduction slightly of the daily minutes of sedentary behavior. Of course, a lot of these numbers may have changed in the last 10 years. And here's our classical study that I'm sure everyone here knows very well, cardiorespiratory fitness decreasing internationally from 1980s to the 2000s primarily, and then leveling off into the 2010s. This temporal trends research was representing 19 high-income countries and from several decades. So I've been very interested in that study and wanting to overlay the changes, the rapid changes that we are seeing in wet bulb globe temperature globally to these known decreases in cardiorespiratory fitness. So thankfully, through these connections, we were able to connect directly and work with the database that was used before for these 19 countries. And I'm working with epidemiologists and researchers, data scientists here in Singapore. And we were looking at pulling that national level climate data for the same epoch of time to match the changes in the cardiorespiratory fitness data. So we ran a clustered country, sex, age level regression analysis. And we just wanted to see whether there was any kind of associations observed between the changes in cardiorespiratory fitness and the changes in wet bulb globe temperature worldwide. So these were the countries originally. We have a nice spread of the global north and south, but of course there are more representations from Europe. And these are some of the preliminary results that we've obtained. With all countries pooled together, we have a very strong linear relationship. And one of those relationships, which is strongest, was seen in Australia. This is likely because they had the largest rate of decline in peak VO2 over that time frame. And another country like Estonia, for example, you can see that their data is not across the entire period, but they have a set period of data from the original studies that were gathered. And there is a strong relationship there as well. So the take-home message of this extremely preliminary data set is that for every 1 degree increase in wet bulb globe temperature, we do see a corresponding decrease in the estimated peak VO2 in children ages 9 to 17 across the 19 climatically diverse regions. This relationship was consistent for both sexes, and wet bulb globe temperature accounted for 96% of the variance that we're seeing. So currently, this is ongoing work, and we've been working quite hard to try and pull out some of the other measures that would augment this model, including looking up the global disease burden study. This is a study that came out 3 years ago in the Lancet, looking at estimating the cause-specific relative risks of non-optimal temperatures. And this was really interesting to me because non-optimal temperatures can be cold or hot. And in fact, cold still kills more people. It's responsible for more deaths worldwide than the heat. However, the increases in heat, and especially in certain parts of the world, are rapidly increasing. And it's that rapidity which is problematic. In that study, they found that Brazil had one of the fastest rates of increase, along with one of the largest attributable rates of mortality to heat. So we're thinking actually of highlighting 1 or 2 case studies in this work and look at the children's specific values. Some other work I just wanted to throw in here. This is work we did with the SlowFit team 2 years ago in Slovenia. They have an incredible study that runs once every 10 years where they collect data at 11 different locations across the country. And when working with them, I realized that some of the work they do are tested outdoors. So they have a very strong database, as we are all aware. This is it's slightly different than SlowFit. And they have data on 30 meters, 60 meters, and 600 meters outdoor running. So what we did with them was pull the last series of data from 2013, 2014, and it was almost 4,000 school children. And I wanted to look at whether run performance might have been affected based on the ambient weather conditions. So the x-axis of these graphs is UTCI. This is the Universal Thermal Climate Index. And we can see it going from around 8 degrees to around 25, 26 degrees. The interesting thing here is after you crunch the numbers, you can see even with the smallest and shortest running distance, even 30 meters, 6-year-old boys and girls have slower run times by about 0.5 of a second or 1 second, but it's consistent over time. And when you look at the older age groups after they've gone through puberty, that relationship disappears. So this is also ongoing work with this team. Why is this important? Well, this is a new paper that came out last year in Nature Communications, where Jenny Vanos's team from the USA in Arizona and some Australian researchers have done a lot of modeling to look at the relationship between relative humidity changes, temperature changes, and what is the maximum metabolic rate that you can be compensably hot. So this is important because people, human beings, can gain and lose heat. And as long as you are moving and working and not creating more heat, and then you can let go, you're okay. And we have to remember that globally, there are lots of children who work, there are children who walk to school, there are children who are doing a lot of physical activity. And so these graphs are new models that are showing by age whether some places indoor shaded or outdoors, and depending on the humidity, what type of physical activity is safe to perform. Now, of course, this data, although it's extremely strong, does not have children, does not have pregnant women, and other vulnerable populations. So this is just a starting point to updating a lot of these models that have been created many, many years ago. So I just wanted to thank the team for this work on the left-hand side. And then I've got the team here in Kuling, Singapore, where we're looking at testing some of these vulnerable populations, children, older adults in our heat chambers. And we're trying to find ways to see what's happening at the limits of human thermal regulation. Thank you very much.
Great work, Shonda. Unfortunately, we don't have any time for questions, but I see there's a lot of comments and questions in the chat. So feel free to pop questions into there. Caddy, I see you have a question, so just add it to the chat and Shonda will answer. Okay,
I'm also going to add just briefly to the chat, there is a brand new UNICEF child heat wave exposure map that you can explore data, and really interesting. It was just recently launched, so that's in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our final presentation. We have Moreau.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
My English is no good.
That's okay.
Can you see the presentation?
Yep.
Well, for a minute. My name is Mauro Santander. I'm from Argentina, in country South American. I work at the Observatory of Physical Activity and Culture of the province of Neuquén. And I briefly to present the physical fitness standard in a student from the province of Neuquén, Argentina. PECF, el Plan de Evaluación de la Condición Física, is the name in Spanish, a Physical Fitness Assessment Plan Study. Well, in 2015, the characteristics of the physical fitness of school children and adolescents in the province of Neuquén are unknown. Additionally, we are basing to the Alpha Fitness Battery and another study in our country. And then the sport secretary of Neuquén created the physical fitness assessment plan study. Objective determining the levels of physical fitness related to health in children and adolescents aged between 10 and 18 years in the province of Neuquén. Population methods. 4,487 students from Neuquén, both sexes, were evaluated using Alpha Fitness Battery, which focuses on 4 priority components of physical fitness: morphological, muscular, motor, and cardiorespiratory. Morphological, body weight and head to calculate body mass index. Muscular, standing long jump. Motor, 4 times 10 meters to evaluate speed and agility. And cardiorespiratory, 20 meters, a shuttle run test. Result, briefly, we found 25.1% of participants were classified as overweight, and 12.7% were classified as obese. The mean values obtaining for physical fitness differed according to age and sex. Then we create reference tables based on age and sex in the Neuquén province. Conclusion, the result of this study provide the first normative table of physical fitness for children and adolescents of both sexes in the province of Neuquén, Argentina. On the other hand, reference table we also created for physical education teacher to be used in daily class. This is our books, Manual de la Evaluación de la Condición Física for the teacher, physical education in Neuquén. Well, here is our group. Atuel is a group is a research unit in the physical activity, health, fitness, and performance. Thank you, Justin, for the time. My English is not good, but we thought it was a good opportunity to present the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mauro. I think your English is perfect. Keep up the good work. And this is the end of the presentations, and I just wanted to say thank you for everyone for attending the meeting. I think it was very informative, and I really enjoyed everyone's presentations. I'm really hoping to continue our momentum. So as I mentioned before, please maybe right now block off the second Thursday of the first week in September for next year, because that's when I'll plan the following meeting. So and look out for my email this coming summer, 2025. That's when I'll begin planning again. So thank you very much for everyone for your time. And if you're able to stick around, we'll have just kind of an open discussion to talk about anything that we feel is important. And to kick that off, I think we have Grant and Kate. It's getting very late for them in Australia, so I'll let them go first so that they can get to bed once they're done.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, and great night for me, actually. I was pleasantly surprised at the diversity of the presentations and the excellent English across different regions of the world. I've got two things that I want to quickly say. First off, we are actually developing a couple of papers that are focusing on developing international norms for muscle and cardio fitness. In particular, the 3 performance-based tests that were presented on by Kai earlier from Fran's Delphi study, where we've tried to standardize internationally the hand grip strength, standing long jump, and 20-meter shuttle run tests. And I'm just putting this out as an advertisement to everyone that hopefully by the end of the year or early next year, we're going to try to reach out to the members of this international meeting and try and tap you on the shoulder at the country level and show you what we've been able to identify in terms of normative data from your country, and ask for your help to see if there's anything we've missed, and if you can help us plug that fitness gap from your country. We'll invite you on as group authors with this work, because we're hoping sometime around the middle of next year that we'll be able to present these international norms for those 3 tests. So stand fast, waiting for an email from us at the end of this year or early next year. And the second thing I just wanted to say, look, over the last couple of years, kudos to you, Justin, and others, particularly having some support from the Public Health Agency of Canada has been great to initially have this meeting and to keep it continuing over the last few years. We're a unique network of international researchers who come together through our love of pediatric fitness-related research. And what I've seen over the years, and in particular today, is that we have various capabilities and capacities across diverse areas, and we can really help develop and drive research agendas and outcomes, across and within jurisdictions and across the globe. So my question to the group is, and I'll get Kate to jump in a sec, do we want to formalize this network somehow? I know there's been talk about it in the past, and I'm just curious to test the temperature in the room and see whether there is a desire to formalize this network in some capacity. Kate, if you want to jump on to maybe add a little bit to that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. And hi, everyone. I'm going to be the first to admit that I have just learned everything about fitness testing in this past 2 hours. So I'm actually a clinical biotechnologist by training. So I work in health and medtech, and I'm a converted business development manager and commercial manager. So I actually support grant and business development for the University of South Australia. And just following on from what Grant, we actually had a conversation this morning as to the network that we have here and the capability that we have here. And the example I really gave, and I do apologize for using a clinical one, is that if you have a heart problem, you go to a cardiology ward in a hospital. And in that cardiology ward are all these people who are specialists in different aspects of the heart. And the same goes for this forum here, that we have such an incredible network. How do we reach into that capability and capacity? And when Grant mentioned, and Justin also mentioned this, I started thinking of opportunities on how we could develop and formalize this, and whether things like memorandum of understandings, just to show this establishment of a network, would be absolutely fantastic to reach out and develop essentially as well. Grant, any other comments on that one?
No, I think you nailed it. And really what I'm looking at doing and seeing if there's a desire for this to happen. I know it's been raised in the past, and I'm just curious, is this something that we want to formalise? Are we happy to continue doing what we're doing? I know Justin's doing a great job of organising this annual meeting. Is it something that we're keen to do moving forward?
Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks. Thanks, Grant, for raising this, and has been raised in many forums in the past. So clearly there is it's tickling people's brains. There's some sort of appetite for it. I would just, to extend the discussion, just get people to think, do we want whatever might help bring us together? And maybe this is enough. Maybe once a year, touch base. Then we have the catalog of people. That's a platform for these different Delphi type studies and seeking further data and stuff, so we've got that, and it would expand naturally over time, which it has. So is that enough, or do we want something a little bit more structured, which we've talked about, that could do other things, that could connect more, that could do webinars, whatever? But the point I wanted to make is, do we want to create something new or attach to something that exists? So we could create, just to go from one extreme to another, I don't know, the International Children's Fitness Association or something like that, and create a new membership group and have a membership fee, and someone would look after it, and then ultimately have to create a board of advisors or directors and so on and so forth. Or we could jump on something that already exists. And so in the past, I raise this and declare my conflict of interest because I'm the president of the Active Healthy Kids Global Alliance. But we've talked about it before, and that, having that as an umbrella organization that exists, has a structure, has a presence on the web. Many people, almost all the presentations made reference to it today, so it's already there. I'm not advocating for this. We've got a lot on the go with Active Healthy Kids Global Alliance as it is. But do we want, if we do want to create something or have a safe place to exist, could we exist as like a special interest group within an existing agency or organization? And I'm not advocating for one or the other. I'm just putting it out there for discussion for people. There are pros and cons of all of the examples that I gave, just staying the way we are and meeting once a year here, creating a new organization from scratch, or latching on to an existing organization. And I just gave one example of one of many that we could latch on to.
Thank you, Mark and Grant and Kate. I think one thing that's been lacking to create kind of a formal group, if we do decide to go in that direction, is somebody to lead it. Everyone keeps looking at me to lead it, but I don't think I have the time or the capacity to really move that type of thing. So if somebody in this group feels like that's a project they want to take on, I think that would be exactly what we need. Shonda?
Thank you. I wonder if it's part of the group's interest to have more advocacy role. I think in the general public and in the health Sphere and WHO, I think general people don't understand or make the connection between physical activity and physical fitness, and that it's the physical fitness that has the ties to the long-term health outcomes and disease states, etc. And the physical activity is more of just total minutes and the vehicle we use to get there. And so I was just wondering if, I think it would be incredibly important to have more of a voice in terms of advocating for fitness. And from the thermal physiology climate change point of view, people who are more physically fit are more able to tolerate high heat scenarios, and it's the fitness aspect that's the protective aspect. So I'll just throw that to the group to think about as well.
Stephanie, you had something to add?
I put it in the chat, but I had two things to consider. One was whether or not maybe, similar to what Mark was mentioning, joining as like maybe a formal council within ISPA or ISPNPA, so then you come under structure that's already there, so it might be easier. And then you could tag meetings to their annual meetings. So you could have satellite meeting related to fitness. And then the other consideration is this has really been focused on children and youth fitness, and whether or not, if you were to create something, you'd want to expand out to keep it focused on children and youth, or also to expand out to adults. So just something to think about.
Claudia?
Yeah, I think the special of this group is that we have the focus on physical fitness, like Shonda said, and the children, because I think there were 100 people in the chat, which strictly, I think, focusing on this topic. And I often visited a lot of international conferences, and the problem often is that there are not that much research focusing only on physical fitness, but physical activity, and that is always too big or too far away. And the focus on children is missing. So that is what I like in this group, is exactly what fits perfect to I think all the people here. So for me, it would be important that this focus will be our focus, whether we are an own association or we are added to another institution. But I think this focus should be kept.
Okay. Does anyone have any last comments, remarks, questions?
I guess as a commercial person, I'm really sorry to do this to you in this forum. I'm going to use the classical, what are the next steps in regards to how, if you would look to get this going, is it something that we can maybe pull the notes that are coming through in the chats just to look at formalizing something? And the reason I say that is because I've just had a quick stalk of people's institutions that they're affiliated with, and there's an incredible network that's been built here, and you really have an opportunity to prosecute for research investment, for policy development in this area. And I think please do not underestimate the power of the people in this meeting. And I know that sounds quite cliche, but the narrative of what I've heard in this meeting is certainly something that needs to be put in front of decision makers like WHO as well.
Yeah, Kate, maybe you can explain a little bit in a little bit more detail what you mean by an MOU and what it would kind of entail for institutions and why you think it would be important.
Yeah, of course. So an MOU is a memorandum of understanding, and this is it's a light-hearted agreement in the sense that it's not legally binding. It's a statement of intent. So that really says, parties or people are coming together with this larger objective in mind, and the intent is to pursue, funding opportunities to establish a network for, and it's that really sort of light-hearted intent, it is a bit of a promotional piece too. So it's a step. So if we look for a network establishment, that is something that we can pull institutions under together, but it just really shows a collaboration is starting and underway, and sort of the target areas that we're looking at too. If there's any questions, please chuck some in the chat. Happy to respond, because I am conscious you're short on time as well. So I didn't want to take over.
No problem.
Does that help, Justin?
Yeah, it does. So if people are interested in going in this direction, they would contact you and Grant?
Grant, I've lost you off my screen, if you're happy with that. Perfect. Really happy to do it. Probably not at 11 o'clock at night, but really happy to do it.
Okay, perfect. All right. Anything else that people want to add? Okay.
I think if
well,
anything pops up, please email. That'll be fantastic.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for your time, and I really enjoyed this whole meeting, and I'm really looking forward to the next one next year. So keep in touch, and have a good evening or good day. Bye.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Great job, Justin. Thank you.